Hi, this is Graham Weimiller. Welcome back to BNI TV. This is the $10 million tutorial, and thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. So we're having fun creating these tutorials. Hopefully you find them valuable. And so if you do, please like, subscribe, or comment below. Certainly feel free to share these throughout your network if they're helpful. And we're going to be covering a lot of specific topics. Again, the focus is on businesses that are currently generating between $200,000 in revenue and $2 million in revenue. Again, we know people are chiming in from around the world, so you may need to localize that to your country or currency. But we want to focus on helping that segment of business really leapfrog to become a business that's worth over $10 million. Why? Because when they reach that level of success, they're reaching a level of significance that can help a lot of people and families around them, and they can be sustainably successful for years and years to come. So we want to help businesses that are in that 200,000 to 2 million in revenue segment leapfrog to become a $10 million business. That's why we call this the $10 million tutorial. So we appreciate you joining. Today, I want to cover governance. Now, you might find that to be kind of a dry topic, and I assure you, it is a really important topic, especially for businesses that are preparing to make a real leapfrog to become a $10 million business. And so I want to talk about three main points when it comes to governance for small businesses. And so again, my name is Graham Weimiller. I appreciate the chance to be with you. I have a chance to learn from over 280,000 businesses worldwide, and my own experiences both doing some things correctly and doing some things incorrectly. So I want to bring all that together to help you become more successful than you ever thought possible. I love entrepreneurship. I love spending time with entrepreneurs around the world, and I do love spending time with you today. So I want to cover three topics related to governance. Number one, having a board of directors, why, when, how to work with them. Number two, the importance of having standard operating procedures and documented standard operating procedures that you're updating frequently. And then the importance of having world-class advisors. And so those are the topics that I want to make sure we cover today. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch into the first, a board of directors. And you say, well, listen, my business is a small business. Why do I need a board of directors? It sounds like a lot of work. It's kind of scary. Am I losing control of my business? Absolutely, you need a board of directors. And so let's talk about why that is important. I have had a chance to both experience myself and also see lots of businesses that didn't have a board of directors in place, and a really terrific entrepreneur with a great idea and a lot of need in that particular niche has a much bumpier road, or ultimately fails because they don't have some objective advice about how to scale that business, and someone talking to them very honestly about the things they need to avoid and the things they need to make sure that they're doing. And so the best board of directors that you can pull from are existing shareholders. So if you have shareholders in your business, those are the best to pull from to put on your board of directors, because they are going to take your call on Friday afternoon when you really need some time-sensitive advice. Now, if you don't have shareholders today, in another segment, I'll talk about the benefits and some of the risks of having outside investors become shareholders in your business. I think there are a lot more benefits when it is done right. The reason I'm bringing it up right now is because if you don't have any external shareholders as a part of your business, this may be an opportunity to find a really excellent board member candidate and allow them to invest. And so as a small business in this kind of segment, you're not going to be paying board fees like a major public company. There are people that are kind of professional board members, and they do nothing but sit on boards of companies and get paid fees. That's not what you should be doing as a small business. So you're going to have a board of directors who are shareholders. So if you don't have shareholders today and you find someone that you feel like would be a great external director for your board, then you can allow them perhaps to invest a certain amount. Of course, that helps create some resources for you to grow, but more importantly in this sense, it helps that board member become really invested in your success. And so you're aligned, they're aligned with you, and you're off and running. So the best board of directors to build is one that is primarily created from shareholders. Now, when I'm talking about a board of directors, in this sense, I'm talking about non-executive directors, which means folks that are not involved in the day-to-day operation in your business. Why am I mentioning that? Well, because you're in the weeds, and a board of directors really helps you elevate out of the weeds and avoid blind spots. And so what you want are folks that are not involved in the business day to day, but have a vested interest in the success of the business. That's the magic of a board of directors. We're going to go deep in future sessions about how to work with a board of directors so that you're very successful. But right now, suffice it to say, you're going to set up quarterly meetings. You're going to send a short write-up 1 week ahead of board meetings. You're going to capture action items, ideas from that meeting and distribute them to the board. And then you're going to start your next meeting with that board of directors going over the action items from the prior meeting. That helps keep you as the leader of the business accountable to keep the business moving forward. So one of the things I think is really important, especially for entrepreneurs, kind of founders of small businesses, when they're first working with a board of directors, is really approaching each board meeting in a very humble way and in a mindset to learn and to reevaluate and reassess their assumptions. The reason I'm mentioning that is I've been in a lot of board meetings where the board is providing some input to the entrepreneur, and instantly the entrepreneur puts a wall up and says, well, let me tell you why that advice isn't the right advice for this situation, or let me tell you why that risk is not a risk in this situation. And that really can take away a lot of the value that a board of directors can provide. So as the entrepreneur, as the executive leading that business, you want to go into that meeting with a really humble mindset, and you want to go in to learn and reassess both your strategies and your tactics, and that will make you and your team and organization more successful. And that's what this is all about. So having an official board of directors that functions well can just be such a huge advantage, especially for small businesses. So don't wait until you reach a certain level to think that you need a board of directors. Then you more than likely need it now. And because early stage businesses, smaller businesses, there's a lot of decisions to be made. That's where that external viewpoint can be so helpful. So some of you might say, well, listen, I have an advisory board and it's kind of the same. It's not the same. So listen, I'm a fan of advisory boards. I think if you have a board of directors, you can also have an advisory board, which is kind of a more casual board of folks for one reason or another that are not on your board of directors, but they still kind of provide input from time to time. But I assure you, it is not the same. It is not the same. So don't be complacent about having a board of advisors and kind of think that that is the same or as beneficial as an official board of directors will be. So a board of directors is a really important step to consider as you're setting up good governance for your small business. Now, let's take a step back for a second. You want to run your small business like a large, successful, growing business, okay? You want to run it, no matter its size, you want to run it that way with that level of professionalism, because that's how you will get there. And once you get there, that will enable you to propel to a new level of success versus having to set up all that infrastructure at that point. Remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to take your business from a certain level to become a $10 million business. How do we do that? Well, we work on the cash flow that it generates, and we also work on the multiple. Right? Those two things are multiplied to come up with the value of your business. Now, if you have good governance in place, that helps increase your multiple because you are a less risky asset. You're a less risky business and you're set up to scale. So that's why we're talking about these things right now. Right now is the time to do it. Now, let's move on to another topic, SOPs. What do I mean by that? Standard operating procedures. And more specifically, I mean documented standard operating procedures. Now, when you think about that, many of you think about a huge binder with lots and lots of paper that no one reads and puts on, we put it on the shelf and that's where it sits forever. That's not what we're referring to here. We mean a very simple set of standard operating procedures, but by documenting them, you will have taken the time to formalize some really important processes in your organization, and you will have the opportunity then to train your growing set of employees on what those standard operating procedures are. Now, you might say, well, why is it so important? We're just, doing some small transactions and, there's not a huge risk if something goes wrong. Well, I would say think again, because you're a small business and you don't have a lot of room for error. So it's almost more important that you have simple, well thought out standard operating procedures. And so what am I talking about with standard operating procedures? It's the mechanics of how your business runs. And so it can be documented management routines. Here's when we meet each week. Here's when we do performance reviews. Here's how those performance reviews work. Also things like a delegation matrix. What is that? Well, it's more commonly called a delegation of authority. So as you, the owner, president, founder of the business, continue to bring on new teammates, there could be confusing who has the power to do what. And there's so much confusion that can come. So having a really simple documented delegation of authority. Okay, here's who can send out a hiring letter to a new teammate. Here is who can withdraw this much from the bank to use for these purposes. Here's who can sign a contract, with a customer. Those simple things that you might think everybody knows, they may not be clear on. And over time, things change. So you want to update your standard operating procedures. But at any given point in time, you should be able to open up a folder, electronic and or actual hard copy, and say, here's our standard operating procedure related to hiring new teammates, or related to signing a contract, or related to dealing with our bank balances. So those things are really important. One related part of your standard operating procedures is having a simple internal audit process. So you want to inspect what you expect. Okay, so you'll be training the team, you'll be forming and updating these standard operating procedures from time to time. And then you want to designate someone or yourself to do a periodic internal audit to make sure that the standard operating procedures that you have put in place are being followed. Okay, so standard operating procedures, SOPs, are really important, especially for small growth oriented businesses. The final point I want to touch on today is making sure that you have world-class advisors. How many times have you heard of someone working with a distant cousin who is a real estate lawyer, and they're working with them on a capital raising transaction or for the sale of their business? Or you're working with a friend who now practices commercial law, and you're working with them on an HR issue. And so there's a tendency for small businesses to do that because they don't have a lot of resources to put into getting the right advice. Well, let me tell you, most of the time, the most expensive advice is the advice that you didn't get. Okay, so we are not doing ourselves any favors if we don't get world-class advisors who are specifically focused on the guidance that you need. Resist the temptation to save money when it comes to some of these critical issues. Many times they can become, distractions, and that costs a lot of money and time. And we could have preempted that if we had the right advice up front. So what am I talking about? Make sure that you have the right legal counsel for the different areas of law that you need to be intersecting with, and then also make sure that you have the right accountants, and especially tax accountants, because we want to make sure, of course, that we're focused on compliance. One of the things that I coach emerging businesses on is a focus on 110% compliance 110% of the time. Why? Because you're building a world-class company. You're going to build a world-class brand. You want to avoid as many distractions as you can along the way. Now, some of those are inevitable. They just sort of happen as a growth-oriented business grows. However, you can avoid a lot of them by making sure that you have the basics in place. And that happens when you have world-class advisors. Most of the time, by the way, world-class advisors who are really focused on your particular need have a lot of templates and can provide you what you need very quickly, as opposed to someone who, may be focused on a more broad set of issues, or, another set of issues. They have to kind of recreate the wheel. It takes them a lot of time. It ends up being more expensive in that way. So again, having world-class advisors from the get-go, and many of those world-class advisors are very willing and excited to work with growth-oriented businesses, and many times they will provide a discounted fee structure. And because, well, number one, want to help emerging clients become successful so they become bigger clients, but also they want to just pay back a lot of the help that they've had along the way, and they just usually have a love for entrepreneurship as well. So, you can negotiate and should negotiate, and they will understand in many cases that, a reduced fee would be appropriate or deferred fee. Now, there are some cases with advisors where there's conflicts of interest and they can't provide discounted fees for early stage companies. And so that is kind of what it is. But many cases, they can provide some discounted fees. So go ahead and talk to them about that up front. They would love to work with you, especially when they see how passionate you are to build a world-class business. So again, 3 points for governance: build a board of directors and really work with that board of directors in a really humbly way. Number 2, create SOPs, documented SOPs that help your business grow. And so at any point, you or other teammates can review those SOPs so everybody's on the same page. And number 3, make sure that you're working with world-class advisors from the get-go. That is the way to go. So thank you very much for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, comment, share this video with anyone to whom you think it would be helpful. And I really appreciate the time. We are together on a journey to help your business become worth at least $10 million. Let's continue moving forward. Thank you. Take care.